America is supposed to be a secular nation, with a wall keeping the church from interfering with state affairs. But 3 very recent developments have somehow put that notion even further into question than it already was. On issues where the secular and religious world have clashed, the government has been allowing the church to gain unfair advantages without the consent of the people. But then again, the Christian right never asks for consent before they fuck us. On July 8th, the Supreme Court ruled that employers with religious objections can decide not to provide free birth control as part of the government-required insurance plan. This is basically a roundabout way to effectively advance the pro-life platform and set some dangerous precedents. On June 30th, Mississippi decided to change its flag from this piece of shit to something else. Good riddance. But we should have known better than to trust the worst state to not fuck something up, because the new design requires the words "In God We Trust" to be displayed on the flag. As part of the ongoing debate on this issue, we will be discussing the Supreme Court's sorry ceremonial deism excuse today as well. And most outrageously of all, on July 10th, it was reported that the Catholic Church has acquired anywhere from $1.4 to $3.5 billion from the Paycheck Protection Program implemented as part of Congress's CARES Act. It raises important questions about why we're expected to prop up religious institutions that literally don't pay any taxes. It's clear that the church has been pressuring the government and receiving benefits not afforded to the non-religious for a very long time. But before we discuss how that's been happening, we have to understand why this is important. For that, we have to start with that all-important document everybody appeals to. As long as it supports their own agenda, that is.
The Bible?
No, we'll get to that one later. I'm talking about the United States Constitution, which contains no mention of Christ, Jesus, Bible, God, Creator, or any variation of any such word. It's not in the Bill of Rights either. The only mentions of religion in the Constitution are in Article 6, where it states,
"No religious test shall ever be required as a qualification to any office or public trust under the United States."
And in the First Amendment, which states,
"Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof."
What does this actually mean?
Essentially, the federal government can't give preferential treatment, recognize legitimacy, or any governmental decisions decided purely on the basis of any faith or lack thereof. The government also can't establish a state religion, control a church, or create faith-based taxes. Basically, the government is supposed to act as if religions don't exist and vice versa. Unfortunately, following this rule isn't a great way to generate votes, so most politicians besides Bernie Sanders have routinely just ignored this. You see, appealing to a religion makes you very popular with members of that same faith. And when around 70% of the US population is Christian, it's a pretty obvious political move to cite and support Christian causes every chance you get. Additionally, 40% of Americans wouldn't vote for an atheist no matter what, compared to 34% and 22% for a Muslim or a homosexual, respectively. No surprise then that presidents from both parties regularly shit on atheists to openly endorse religion at events such as National Days of Prayer and prayer breakfasts.
Okay, there's some religious lip service from politicians now and again, as long as it don't affect substantive policy.
Well, it's hard to say it hasn't. The national motto, "In God We Trust," and "Under God" in the Pledge of Allegiance all elevate religion over non-religion. Federal courts have argued this is just ceremonial deism, which serves a patriotic rather than religious purpose. Never mind that Dwight Eisenhower, the one who signed these changes into law, literally said,
"We are reaffirming the transcendence of religious faith in America's heritage."
Besides ceremonial deism being obviously oxymoronic, a quick look at the history of America debunks this claim.
God bless.
Both the national motto and that "Under God" tripe were a direct result of the Cold War. The land of the supposedly free had to distinguish itself from those godless communists. So these religious references were undoubtedly created, even if not in support of religion, definitely in opposition to atheism. Even if we were to accept that ceremonial deism doesn't inherently violate religious freedom, the explicitly anti-atheist purpose of "In God We Trust" and the Pledge of Allegiance is more than just patriotic. Speaking of the Pledge of Allegiance though, the God phrase isn't the only part I have a problem with. Growing up, did anybody really have any idea what the words they were reciting in the Pledge of Allegiance actually meant? I certainly didn't. If you really examine the words, which I had to look up because I couldn't remember them, it seems to imply that America's inherently righteous and free. Shouldn't kids sort of, understand the words they're about to recite before declaring their undying loyalty to the flag? If this all sounds like indoctrination of gullible children, that's because it is. And when you smuggle ideas like God in with all those positive sounding words, you're implying to impressionable kids that God is very good and very real. And that brings us back to Mississippi, who might soon be facing a group which recognizes that God isn't what he's all cracked up to be. The Satanic Temple is a non-theistic religion which admires the literary Satan's symbolic rebellion against the tyranny of God and the social norms imposed by religion. If trusting in God doesn't violate atheists, it certainly goes directly against the temple's anti-God tenets. Now, I doubt the Satanic Temple will actually win their lawsuit against the new flag, but that doesn't matter. The Satanists' job is mainly to disrupt the system and draw attention toward America's more dangerous religious problems. For example, the Supreme Court ruled on July 8th that employers can opt out of providing free birth control as part of its insurance package on religious or moral grounds. Apparently, your belief in magic and fairy tales somehow lets you bypass the rights of over 70,000 women and deny them adequate birth control. Imagine if there was a religious objection to, let's say, vaccines, which of course there is. Would we just allow them to exclude vaccines from their health package? This ruling is clearly another one of those arbitrary exceptions created by partisan fuckery. It's also weird that so many Christian groups are so anti-choice because God in the Bible permits, orders, and even causes abortions all the damn time. For example, in Numbers 5, God commands priests to force women who have adulterated to drink a potion which causes them to miscarry. Looks like God is absolutely okay with abortion, even against the will of the mother. Well, guess he's not pro-life or pro-choice. Whether you support a woman's bodily integrity or a fetus's right to life, the Bible ain't the best place to look for guidance. But religion can help you generate a ton of money, because religious organizations are basically exempt from having to pay any taxes.
Doesn't separation of church and state keep the government from taxing churches?
No, it just prevents the government from levying a tax aimed specifically at churches. As far as the IRS is concerned, tax breaks are considered a form of subsidy amounting to $83.5 billion per year. That's enough money to fund free public college and lift millions out of poverty. The American people are being forced to trade intellectual growth for brainless grifting. Not only that, unlike other nonprofits that have to apply to the IRS and are regularly audited to ensure they're following regulations required to keep their tax-exempt status, the government has purposefully avoided checking faith groups for that. The feds not only fail to treat churches as they treat all other groups, they treat religious groups with unique privileges, clearly violating the Establishment Clause. Which brings us back to the Catholic Church, which again received anywhere from $1.4 to $3.5 billion from, of all places, the Small Business Administration. There's no way the Catholic Church should have needed or qualified for that money. It's basically made of gold due to being the largest pyramid scheme in the world. The Paycheck Protection Program is a corporate welfare policy designed to help the rich, who in turn make campaign donations to the politicians who pass it. And now religions are cashing in as well, despite supposedly being politically neutral due to never paying a single dollar in taxes. Religion has become more involved in politics than it ever should have been, and it's easy to see how. The church is just another arm in the capitalistic system which continually corrupts American politics. Like businesses, they are motivated by money and seek to grow over time. But they also resemble governments in that they determine the morals of the people and control a great deal of their life. This unique combination, added to a deep emotional connection they instill in their base, puts it in a position of great influence. And why wouldn't they use that influence? Even if you are religious, remember that your religion is one of hundreds in America. Most of that $83.5 billion is subsidizing faith groups who will only use their power to advance their own interests. Most, if not all, of that money is going toward a deeply irrational cause which has no place affecting the policies we must live under. It is in everybody's best interest to continue to fight for the separation of church and state, and government policies based on reason, regardless of our religion. Well, that's 2 videos about religion in a row. Probably back away from that for a while, but I haven't gotten any huge overarching plan for what my next videos are gonna be. Our community's just about doubled in size recently, but it's all been driven by 2 videos, and we're kind of having trouble keeping up that momentum. Maybe putting more Trump in my thumbnails would do something, I don't know. If you liked my original musical compositions in the background, come check out my Bandcamp and download the songs for free. It's not like you have anything better to do.
I'm and I approve this message.